Hey guys, welcome to another Sun Bros video, and today we are going to be covering physical damage items. We're going over the beginners kind of playlist that we're doing, the beginner's guide, and we're going to be going through every single one of these different items styles. We're going to be doing physical damage, then we're going to be doing magic damage, then we're going to be knocking out defensive items, and then of course boots. Then we'll go through a rundown of the runes and the spells so that everyone kind of has a beginner's feel for everything that's going on in the game, how the items work, how the runes work, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll be moving on to some other things in the beginner guide. But let's start today with physical items. I'm excited about this one because there's a lot of interesting items in this game that do a lot of interesting things. So let's go ahead and get started. The first item is Bloodthirster. Bloodthirster has 65 attack damage. The ability Bloody gives you 15% physical vamp. And then Bloodsworn. Physical Vamp overheals you, generating a shield that absorbs 40 to 320 damage. This shield decays out of combat over 10 seconds. Bloodthirster is both the highest attack damage item in the game, as well as the highest physical vamp item in the game. So 65 attack damage is as high as it gets, and 15% physical vamp is also as high as it gets. So if you're looking for either of those two things, and we'll kind of give a wrap up to that at the end of the video. But if you're looking for high attack damage or high, lifesteal in this case, or both, Bloodthirster is the next item for you. Next, we're looking at Static Shiv. Now, the interesting about the Static Shiv is that there is several items that actually are basically identical to Static Shiv in stats. The first one is obviously Static Shiv. The second one is Rapid Fire Cannon right here. The third one is Phantom Dancer down at the bottom. They all have 25% crit rate and 35% attack speed. The only thing that differentiates them is actually the special ability. Now, Static Shiv has Energized. Actually, I think they all have movement speed too. 5% movement speed, 5% movement speed, and 5% movement speed. So yeah, they all have that the same as well. So Static Shiv has Energized, Rapid Fire Cannon has the moving, and actually they're both called Energized. Actually, they're totally different, but they're both called Energized. And Phantom Dancer has Lifeline. So we'll go over those individually as we get there. There is another item that is actually in the same model, but slightly different, and that's Grunon's Hurricane. It's the same basic where it has 25% crit rating, but this one actually has 45% attack speed, and it has no movement speed, and it has a different special ability, but it's in the same mold of crit attack speed, nothing else on it. And Grunon's Hurricane is special because it can only be used by ranged heroes. So we'll go over that in a little bit. So Static Shiv, Energized. Moving and attacking generates energy attacks. At max stats, your next attack deals 50 to 120 bonus magic damage and activates all energized effects. Shiv Lightning. Energized attacks bounce up to 5 nearby enemies, and each can hit crit. So, pretty interesting item. It's basically one that every now and then will give you extra damage, and it'll hit lots of people instead of just one. So Static Shiv is often used by people like Master Yi or Jin Zhao or some other kind of fighter assassin types like that. Next, we're moving on to Blade of the Rend King. This one is 20 attack damage, 35% speed. This makes it actually the third highest attack speed item in the game, tied with a bunch of others. But it also has 10% physical vamp. So there's only 3 physical vamp items in the entire physical section. We saw Bloodthirster at 15%. This is the second one at 10%. The special ability is Ruined Strikes. Attacks deal bonus physical damage equal to 6% of the enemy's current health on hit. Melee attacks deal 9%. Minimum damage 15. Max damage versus monsters 60. So let's talk about that real quick. So pretty self-explanatory, but some people get confused with it. Essentially, every time that you auto attack or basic attack an enemy, you're going to take 6% of their current health. So when you start out at full health attacking someone, it's going to be obviously more. And every time you attack them, the damage that bonus does is going to go down as their current health goes down. It looks like melee attacks, it does 9% of the enemy's current health. So pretty solid item for anyone who builds attack speed. It's great on Master Yi. It's great on a whole slew of assassin types who do a lot of damage with their basic attacks and do rely on that attack speed as a part of that. The second part of it is hitting a champion with 3 attacks or abilities deals 30 to 100 magic damage and steals 25% of their movement speed for 2 seconds. So the percent health is every attack, and then the drain special is if you hit them with 3 attacks. So it's kind of like a ramp up effect where you get that a little bit extra damage from magic damage, and then it steals movement speed for 25%. Now, I have to look into it extra. Maybe it'll be on an advanced guide. I don't know if when it says steals 25% of their movement speed, I'm not 100% certain if that just reduces their movement speed and it slows them by 25%, or they get reduced by 25% and you gain 25%. I don't think it's that, but I'll have to figure that out for sure because I'm not positive. But it's a weird word to use, steals, as opposed to just slows enemy. So it very well could be that you take 25% and gain 25%, but there is a 60-second cooldown on that. Next, rapid fire cannon. Again, standard 25% crit rate, 35% attack speed, 5% movement speed. Moving and attacking generates energy stacks. At maximum stacks, your next attack deals extra bonus magic damage and activates energized effects. The energized effect is from Fire Cannon Barrel. Energized stacks can charge 25% faster, and energized attacks have a 150 bonus attack range. Melee attacks gain only 50 range. So actually super helpful. Because it generates the stat, the energized, while you're moving. When it gets to full, you end up usually using it to start a fight. So if you start a fight with this, it's going to do extra damage and it's going to be extra long range, and it's a really strong attack. One of my favorite people to take this item on is actually Misfortune, because not only do you get the extra range and the extra damage from rapid fire cannon, but Misfortune's passive causes her to do extra damage the first time she attacks each individual person. So kind of a double whammy there. Next we have Runon's Hurricane. I've already gone over the 25% crit rate, 45% attack speed, and attacks strike 2 additional nearby enemies, each dealing 40% of your total attack damage. These strikes can critically strike and trigger on-hit effects. So Runon's Hurricane, with ranged characters like Jinx, for example, or Ashe or other marksmen, it's going to hit 3 targets instead of 1, and it's going to do basically 40% of your attack damage as damage to the 2 additional targets, but it will trigger on-hit effects. Now, one of the items this pairs really well with is Runon's Hurricane, because this does the enemy's current health on hit bonuses. So 6% for ranged is what you're going to end up getting with Runon's Hurricane. So even though you will only do 40% of your attack damage as damage to those targets, if you have Runon's Hurricane, you will still steal 6% of their current health every time you attack them. So very potent combination for Blade of the Rude King and Runon's Hurricane. I like it a lot on a lot of different heroes. I haven't actually fiddled with a build on Jinx, so the one at the bottom is recommended. But yeah, really cool, interesting combination. Next we have Yomus Ghostblade. Now Yomus Ghostblade is one of the armor penetration items. It's got 50 attack damage, 10 ability haste, and 10 armor penetration. Now as far as the attack damage goes, it's not up there near the top. There's Bloodthirster 65, Infinity Edge 55. There's one more 55, so it's kind of in that 4th tier. But it's got 10 armor penetration, momentum. Moving builds momentum, granting up to 50 movement speed at 100 stacks. Attacking removes all momentum. Stacks decay when movement is impaired. The Spectral Haste, attacking with max momentum, grants 25% attack speed for 4 seconds. So it's a really solid item. The cost of 3,000 is a little bit cheaper than some of these other items like Bloodthirster and Infinity Edge and stuff like that. So it's kind of a specialized item. Specific heroes are going to use it, and we'll go over that when we talk about heroes specifically, but solid. Next we have Duskblade of Darkthar. Now this is a very specific item. It has 50 attack damage, 10 ability haste, like Yomus Ghostblade. And by the way, there is several items that do this exact thing as well, that have this 50 and 10. Yomus is one of them. Duskblade of Darkthar is another, and the last one is Umbral Glaive. They all have Umbral Glaive. They have different, obviously, specials. So we saw that one. Duskblade of Darkthar, the 50 armor penetration, and then the Night Stalkers. Being unseen for 1 second causes your next attack against a champion to deal 20 to 125 bonus field damage and slows them by 99% for 0.25 seconds. Buff lasts for 5 seconds, and range attacks do not slow. So I imagine the meaning behind that is that you have 5 seconds to hit somebody with that empowered auto attack, or it wears off. But this is obviously because you have to be unseen. It's going to be really good on a hero like Evelyn or anyone else who can go invisible. We got another hero coming out, Rengar coming out, who can go invisible. So a lot of I believe it works if you're in a bush. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to double check on that. But interesting item nonetheless. Next we have the Big Daddy Massive. This is so we talked about it. Bloodthirster is your physical vamp item, and it's also your highest attack damage item. Well, Infinity Edge is number 2 in attack damage. It has that 25% crit like several of these other items do, but the critical strikes deal 230% damage instead of 200%. If you are playing a build that is utilizing crit and crit damage, this item is absolutely essential. It boosts the amount of damage your crit strikes do, but it's also second highest in attack damage. Totally beefy, totally great. Next, we got Moral Reminder, and this is your basic of 2 different things. So we talk about niche items. This fills 2 niche, 2 kind of very specific roles in your kit as somebody who's building a build with physical damage items. Number 1, 45 attack damage, not too shabby, but the 2 special things it does is 30% armor and penetration. So let's say, for example, that you're fighting somebody who has 100 armor. That's obviously not going to be how much they have necessarily, but let's say they have a flat 100 armor. And 100 armor reduces 100 damage from your physical attacks. Well, 30% armor penetration will reduce that armor by... the math doesn't break out that even. There's a lot that goes into how much 100 armor reduces damage from physical, etc. We're not going to go into that right now because we're doing a beginner's guide. But it reduces 30% of that armor, and therefore reducing the effectiveness of that armor. We'll go into some of the more detailed stuff about diminishing returns and that kind of stuff. But if you have players that have a lot of armor, this is the absolute best item to get for that. And the second part of its kind of niche specialized group is that it's the physical damage item that applies Grievous Wounds. Now, Grievous Wounds is a special kind of debuff that you can apply to people that reduces their healing by 50%. So, if you have someone like Dr. Mundo, or you have a really good healer like Sona, or Nami, or Seraphine, actually I think Seraphine does mostly shield, I think she does a little bit of healing, but anyways, anyone that heals a lot, then this is the item to go with. It reduces healing by 50%. I mean, it's absolutely mandatory if you're facing a Mundo or somebody like that, or if you're facing somebody that has Bloodthirster and a couple of these other physical vamp items and are just life-stealing like crazy, this is an item that counters them. So really not something you're going to want to put on every single build, but you're going to build it often because you're going to have really tanky heroes building a lot of armor and people who have healing where it comes in handy. Next we have Black Cleaver. Black Cleaver is kind of a very unique item amongst all these physical damage items. Number 1, it gives you 350 max health, and you get 30 attack damage, and you get 25 ability haste. Ability haste is the stat that goes into reducing the cooldowns of your abilities. Also, Sunder, dealing physical damage to a champion, reduces their armor by 4% for 6 seconds, stacking 6 times for 24% reduction. Now, I want to clarify something for some of you who've been playing Mobile Legends and Arena Valor and all those other trash MOBAs and are moving to this incredible game called Wild Rift. Now, it doesn't say basic attacks reduce armor. It says dealing physical damage. The reason why I want to make a point of that is because there's a lot of abilities in this game that hit physical damage over and over and over again. For example, Wukong's ult spins in a circle a bunch of times, dealing damage every time he rotates. There's other items, or there's other abilities that do a similar thing. Ashe's first ability hits with a bunch of arrows really quickly. So she shoots out like a quick barrage of arrows, each one of those dealing different physical damage. So this item could actually be pretty awesome if you're feeling a little squishy sometimes, you're feeling like you want a little bit more tankiness, that max health comes in handy. If you want to reduce the cooldowns of your abilities because your character is very ability based, like somebody this goes really well on is Darius. Darius has some abilities that he can deal physical damage very quickly. I believe Darius's bleed might be physical damage, so it might even add on these Sunder ticks, the reduction in armor, every time that one of his bleeds goes into effect. And then, of course, Darius lives on his abilities. He loves dunking on people and doing a spin to heal, etc. So this actually helps him have quicker cooldowns on his abilities so he gets them up faster. And it also goes up 24%. Now, the other cool thing about this is an item like Mortal Reminder, which we just talked about, which reduces armor by 30%, only works from your attacks. So it's going to only reduce armor by 30% when you're attacking that target. Now, Black Cleaver, on the other hand, reduces that person's armor as a whole. So it will be effective for every physical damage or anyone who utilizes attack damage who's attacking that target. I think a very underrated item because I think people don't fully understand how it works. The second part of it is dealing physical damage grants 20% movement speed, and kills with physical damage grants 60% movement speed for 2 seconds. The bonuses do not stack. Ranged champions gain half of those values. So I think Black Cleaver is a misunderstood, underused, underappreciated item. I think if people really read their abilities closer and they read the description of the Sunder portion of this item closer, a lot of heroes that really bank on their abilities to be a high part of their character's effectiveness rather than their basic attacks might find this to be a surprisingly good item. Alright guys, next we have Manamune. Manamune is a very specialized item. The only character I know who takes this regularly is Ezreal, and I'll explain why. This item gives 25 attack damage, 300 mana, 20 ability haste, so it's going to help with the cooldown reduction. And the first ability, Awe, grants attack damage equal to 1.5% of your max mana, and refunds 15% of all mana spent. Mana Charge increases max mana by 10 every attack or when mana is spent. Caps at 700 bonus mana, transforming Manamune into Muramana. You can only trigger that effect 3 times every 12 seconds. You may only carry 1 Tear of the Goddess item at a time. There's a Tear of the Goddess item in physical damage, which is Muramasa. There's one in magic damage, and there's one in defense. We'll talk about those when we get to those sections. Now, when it turns into Muramana, because it does get that extra 700 total bonus mana, it goes up to 1,000 bonus mana. The other stats are the same, and so it grants attack damage equal to 1.5% of your max mana pool. On somebody like Ezreal, you're probably going to end up with, I did the math on here. You end up with a certain chunk of mana. You gain about 30 attack damage. If you build just this item for mana and you just build everything else, at max level, you will gain 30 extra attack damage, and you'll end up with 55 attack damage on this item. Basically unlimited mana, and still you'll have that ability haste. So it's a great item on Ezreal specifically because Ezreal's base kit is totally built into his first ability, which he casts constantly. He basically spams all his abilities constantly. He is a mana whore, and so having that huge mana pool and getting your mana refunded is a big deal. And it's not a slouch item either. 55 attack damage is the second highest attack damage in the game, tied with Infinity Edge. Next, we have Trinity Force, and this is, as it says in the game, the most well-rounded item in the game. It gives you so much. 200 health, 20 attack damage, 40% attack speed, being the second best attack speed item in the game, 25 ability haste for your cooldown reductions. Absolute beast item. It's only one of a couple items, I think, that gives you 3 of your basic physical damage stats. So really boss. Also, you get Fur, 5% movement speed. You get Spellblade. Using an ability causes the next attack used within 10 seconds to deal bonus physical damage equal to 200% of your base attack damage. So not all of your attack damage, only your base. Every character gets a base attack damage, and then that base attack damage grows a certain amount per level. We'll probably go into that in more detail on a future video where we explain those things in more detail. So, and then the second part of it is damage is reduced versus structures. For that special ability. The other part of is Rage. Attacks grant 20% movement speed. Kills grant 60% or 60 movement speed for 2 seconds. Bonuses do not stack. Ranged champions, of course, gain half. We've seen that on a couple items already. Pretty standard. Now we have Maul of Malmortius. Now this is again a very niche, specialized item, and the reason why is because it's pretty tanky. 45 attack damage, 35 magic resistance, 10 ability haste. So basically, if you're facing a team with 3 or more magic damage dealers and they're starting to bug you, give you some problems, Malmortius is an item you might consider getting. Personally, I just prefer going to getting a tank item that has a bunch more magic resistance and is a lot more tanky. I don't fully see the point of doing the half-half. It isn't totally useless, but I think it's, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone build it in this game. I think it's a little underwhelming personally. Lifeline, magic damage that puts you under 35% health grants a shield that absorbs 350 magic damage for 5 seconds. That's the other thing about it, is that there's a couple items that give lifeline. Specifically, they're on the defense side, and normally they absorb all kinds of damage. Well, Mortius specifically only absorbs magic damage. So if you take physical damage, you're still going to take it at full force. No shield for that. Then the next part is Life Grip, triggering lifeline grants 30 attack damage, 10% physical vamp, 10% magical vamp until exiting combat. So you're going to get some extra life steal if you do drop below 35% health. Next we have Death Stance. I'm not a huge fan of this item, but it is a kind of niche item. It doesn't not niche. It's interesting. This is an item that I might consider taking on someone like Mundo if I want to be a little more damage oriented. You'll see why. So 300 max health, 35 attack damage, 15 ability haste to get the cooldown reductions down. You get 10% physical vamp, and then the specialized part of it is cauterize. 30% of damage taken is instead dealt as bleed effect over 3 seconds. So for a character like Mundo who heals like crazy when his ultimate is up, maybe he doesn't want to take a lot of chunk damage. This helps reduce that. Takes damage over time while he's healing over time. It kind of mitigates a lot of that extra chunky damage. Interesting, I think underwhelming, and I don't think super useful on most people. Next we have Phantom Dancer, the last of these specialized 25 crit, 35% attack speed items. You get 5% movement speed, of course, and then the specialized is that lifeline. Damage that puts you under 35% health, grants you a shield that absorbs damage. So you see the difference between Mortius, which is 350 magic damage, to Phantom Dancer, which is 240 to 590, so it's quite a bit more, and it's of any damage type, not specifically magic. So that's why Mortius is kind of like a meh item, is because this basically does a lot of the same things, minus the magic resist, and it just does it better. So unless you really need magic resist, which is why I said I'd just rather go to a defense item that does that. Last, and probably least, I think one of the least items I've seen besides Mortius is Bro Glee. It's that same vein as we talked about with Dustblade of Drakthar and Yomus Ghostblade. 50 attack damage, 10 ability haste, 10 armor pen, so that basic set of stats. And then this one says, being spotted by an enemy ward reveals traps and disables wards around you for 8 seconds. Attacks instantly destroy both objects. So I actually do think this item has a specific and important purpose. And I'll tell you 2 heroes that I would take this item against pretty regularly, I think. I don't know how absolutely useful it's going to be. So like if you want to be playing and go, they have a ward on Dragon or Baron, you want to make sure that you can do that without being seen. You don't have the sweeper or whatever. This helps. But against a hero like Teemo, for example, who throws out all those mushrooms, can be useful. Against a hero like Jin, who throws out his flowers that can do some damage and set him up for a nice route, can be helpful. Again, not seen very often, but I can see times when this would be a useful item. It's just not very often. Alright guys, that is it for the physical damage items. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. I hope you learned something. I hope it helps you guys build better builds for yourselves in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back with our magic damage items, our defense items, and our boots, and all the other stuff we talked about soon. So keep in touch. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Like the video, and thanks for watching.